Imagine someone comes into your life. Maybe it's a new romantic partner or a fast friend or even a manager at a new job.
Right, it can happen anywhere.
Exactly. And they just buy you these unprompted gifts. They do your laundry or they take on your heavy projects at work. They just constantly shower you with praise.
Telling you how rare and special you are.
Yeah. And you feel incredibly lucky. I mean, you think you finally met someone who just genuinely gets you? But then the absolute second you say no to them or try to set a basic normal boundary,
The temperature in the room just plummets.
it violently evaporates, the warmth is just gone, and suddenly you're hit with this very cold, very calculated, well, after everything I've done for you.
It is a genuinely chilling pivot.
Yeah.
And the whiplash you feel in that exact moment, it isn't just surprise.
No, it's something deeper.
It's the sudden realization that what you thought was a free exchange of goodwill was actually a binding contract,
Ugh.
one that you never even signed.
Wow. Yeah, that hits hard. Well, welcome back to the Dupe Dive. To you, our resident learner, you're here because you have this relentless drive to understand the complex, sometimes pretty shadowy layers of human behavior.
You want to know the actual mechanics of how people operate?
Exactly. The psychology behind closed doors without needing a PhD to decode it. And today, we are taking a magnifying glass to a dynamic that is terrifyingly common, but honestly, it rarely gets called out for what it is.
We were deconstructing the dark side of nice
Yes, we are.
because we're looking at a behavioral landscape that is, frankly, a psychological minefield. The very thing we are taught from childhood to revere and value.
You mean like generosity and kindness?
Right? Helpfulness, all of that. It literally becomes the weapon. We are exploring the insidious ways people use kindness to control you.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And our mission today is to equip you with the psychological tools to tell the difference between a genuine gift and a hidden trap.
I think of this type of weaponized kindness like a Trojan horse. I mean, it looks like a beautiful, generous, magnificent gift on the outside, right?
A completely harmless gift.
Yeah. So you willingly open your gates, you bring it inside your walls because, hey, who doesn't like a beautiful, thoughtful gesture?
We all do. It feels good.
It does. But once you let it past your boundaries, the belly of that horse opens up. And this army of obligations and guilt and expectations just spills out to completely take over your life.
The analogy is spot on. It really highlights the deception involved here. Because when you study the psychology of manipulation, behavioral experts consistently warn us about this exact dynamic.
What do they say specifically?
Well, they point out that while kindness and generosity are inherently beautiful, pro-social traits, the things that actually bind human communities together, they have a profound shadow side.
The dark side.
Exactly. When kindness becomes excessive, or when it becomes highly strategic, or, when it is constantly brought up after the fact as leverage, it morphs. It goes from being a gift to being pure manipulation.
It's a trap. And to understand how this Trojan horse gets past our gates in the first place, we can't just look at the gifts themselves, we have to look at the velocity.
The speed is key.
Right. The sheer speed and intensity with which a controlling person operates early on. I mean, they don't just knock politely on the gate and wait for you to answer.
No, they kick the door down.
They overwhelm your defenses completely.
They create an emotional flood. And we see this manifesting most clearly in a behavioral pattern known as love bombing. Now, a lot of us who follow psychology or modern relationship dynamics, we're familiar with the term.
On a surface level, at least.
Right. We know it involves flooding a target with affection and attention and gifts incredibly early on. But what's crucial to understand is the underlying architecture of this tactic.
Okay, unpack that for me. What's the architecture?
The goal here isn't genuine connection, because genuine connection requires time and vulnerability and mutual discovery.
Yeah, that takes months or years even.
Exactly. The manipulator's goal is rapid, unbreakable attachment.
So it's the fast and furious trap. We're talking about constant, incessant messaging. Like waking up to 3 paragraphs of text about how amazing your soul is before you've even had your coffee.
Right, which feels a little intense, but people brush it off.
They do, because they're showering you with compliments that honestly seem entirely disproportionate to how long they've known you. Making these grand declarations like, we are meant to be, or I've never felt this way before about anyone.
And they're saying this within days or maybe weeks of meeting you.
Which is wild. So why does this work? Because logically, you'd think we would all just run away from that.
Well, to understand why this works, we have to look at the underlying biochemical hack taking place in your brain. Data from behavioral research including some really profound insights from clinical teams at places like Nebraska Medicine, shows us that this isn't just flattering.
What is it then?
It's intoxicating. Humans have this deep evolutionary need to feel seen, to feel valued, and special. When someone provides that validation in such a concentrated, overwhelming dose, it triggers a massive release of dopamine and oxytocin in your brain.
Oh, wow. So it's literally a chemical high.
It is a literal high. Nebraska Medicine actually defines this behavior explicitly as a calculated tool for manipulation. It is designed to hook the victim so deeply on a biochemical and emotional level that it creates a full-blown dependency.
Like an addiction.
Precisely. The manipulator becomes your sole source of this incredible feeling of worth. And this is done intentionally, so that later on, when the cruelty begins, the victim's brain simply explains it away.
Because they want the high back.
Right. They experience cognitive dissonance. They think, well, this cold, mean person isn't the real them. The real them is the person who thought I was perfect.
They are constantly chasing that initial high, just waiting for that version of the person to come back. And the psychological framework for this usually follows a really devastating, predictable cycle, right?
Yes, a three-step cycle.
It starts with idealization. This is that love bombing phase where you are put on an absolute pedestal. I mean, you can do no wrong. You are drenched in their version of kindness. You are the smartest, funniest, most attractive person they've ever met.
But the pedestal is exceptionally narrow. It's impossible to balance on it forever. Eventually, you're going to express an independent thought, or you'll have a bad day.
Or you'll simply say no to a request.
Exactly. And that triggers the transition into the second phase, which is devaluation. This is where the mask slips. The exact same person who said you were flawless suddenly introduces subtle criticism, unexplainable mood swings, and emotional distance.
It's so disorienting.
The very traits they praised you for are now weaponized against you. If they loved your independent spirit in week 1, by month 3, that same spirit is called selfishness or stubbornness.
It's enough to make you feel like you are absolutely losing your mind. And then that leads to the final phase, which is discard or control.
Which is the hardest part.
Yeah. They either pull away entirely, which forces you to scramble and beg to win their affection back, or they keep you hooked on a string. They dangle the possibility of returning to that beautiful golden idealization phase, all while doing whatever they want and controlling your daily behavior.
Because the initial kindness was merely the bait. Control was always the primary objective.
Now, I want to pivot slightly here, because whenever we hear the term love bombing, it naturally sounds very romantic. It sounds like a term invented for, reality dating shows or toxic breakups.
It usually gets framed that way, yeah.
But I think limiting it to romance gives us a huge blind spot. Can this exact same fast and furious dynamic happen in platonic friendships or even in the workplace?
Oh, absolutely.
Because to me, it feels less like a doomed romance and more like a predatory loan. You get all this emotional cash up front, absolutely zero credit check. They're just handing you briefcases of validation and praise. But the interest rate they're going to charge you later on will completely bankrupt you emotionally.
To take that predatory loan analogy a step further, the lender doesn't care about your long-term financial health. They only care about indenturing you to them. And to answer your question, yes, absolutely.
Where did the term actually come from?
The term love bombing actually originated in the 1970s within the context of analyzing cult recruitment tactics. It had nothing to do with romance initially.
Wait, really? Cults?
Yes. It was about isolating an individual by overwhelming them with a manufactured sense of belonging and community. So it's entirely applicable to friendships, family dynamics, and professional environments.
Okay, give me a workplace example, because I think a lot of people listening might be experiencing this right now without even realizing it.
Okay, imagine you start a new job at a tech startup. Within your first week, your boss is pulling you into high-level meetings, telling you that you are the rock star they've been waiting for.
That sounds amazing, honestly.
They're taking you out for expensive lunches, promising you a rapid track to a VP role. They even text you on weekends, not about work, but just to say how much they value your mind.
Yeah, you'd feel like you hit the career jackpot.
Precisely. You feel a fierce, completely unearned loyalty to this manager. You've taken that predatory loan. But then, month 3 rolls around, the manager suddenly drops a massive, poorly planned project on your desk on a Friday afternoon.
Oh, no.
And they say, I need this by Monday morning. I knew I could count on my rock star.
Using the praise as a trap.
Exactly. And when you hesitate, the warmth vanishes. They look disappointed. They might say, "Oh, I thought you were committed to our vision. I guess I misjudged you."
Wow, that is so manipulative.
Suddenly, you are working an 80-hour week, sacrificing your weekend, your family time, your health, entirely driven by the guilt of not living up to that initial idealization. The balloon payment on that emotional loan is due, and the currency is your boundaries.
That is deeply unsettling. So if love bombing is this overwhelming emotional flood, the manipulator's next tactic seems to be far more subtle. It's highly practical, and it kind of flies under the radar of what we usually consider manipulation.
Right, we're moving from the purely emotional realm to the tangible realm.
I'm talking about everyday favors.
Yes. This is where the dynamic shifts into a behavioral pattern known in psychological circles as overhelping. It's the unasked for assist.
Right. So picture this. You mentioned in passing that you need to paint your living room. You aren't asking for help. You're just, making conversation.
Just chatting about your weekend plans.
Exactly. But the manipulator insists on helping, even when you explicitly say, no, really, I'm fine. I actually like painting alone, put on a podcast. It's my Zen time.
They show up anyway.
They do. They go out of their way to do generous things you never asked for. And the kicker, they make incredibly painfully sure that you know exactly how much effort and sweat and sacrifice it cost them to do this thing you actively didn't want them to do.
This is the absolute essence of weaponized kindness. At first, it is confusing, but often flattering. You might feel a little boundary crossed, but you rationalize it.
You tell yourself they're just being nice.
You think, wow, they must really care about my well-being to sacrifice their Saturday for me. I shouldn't be ungrateful. But later, the true nature of that favor transforms. It ceases to be an act of service and turns into a physical receipt.
A receipt they keep right in their back pocket.
Exactly. 3 weeks later, you are in a disagreement about something entirely unrelated. Maybe they want to borrow your car and you need it for work. Suddenly, they pull out the ledger.
Oh, here it comes.
I dropped everything to paint your entire house. I ruined my favorite shirt doing it. And you can't do this one small thing for me.
They are cashing in the receipt. And in the moment, it feels so profoundly unfair, but it leaves you entirely tongue-tied. You don't even know what to say.
It feels unfair because the transaction was non-consensual. Behavioral researchers like Housley have written extensively on this phenomenon.
Yeah.
The favor literally becomes leverage. It is a calculated future weapon designed specifically for emotional blackmail.
It's so calculated.
It is. But to truly understand why this is so devastatingly effective, we have to look beneath the psychology and examine our evolutionary biology. Why does this work so flawlessly on almost every human being?
Yeah, why do we cave? Why don't we just look at them and say, I literally told you not to come over and paint. I didn't ask you to do that, so that's your problem, not mine. Why is that so hard to say?
Because human beings are biologically, psychologically, and socially wired for reciprocity. It is one of the most fundamental building blocks of human civilization.
Going all the way back.
If we look back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors, survival depended entirely on the reciprocal exchange of resources. If I share my food with you today when you have none, there is an unspoken biological pact that you will share with me tomorrow when I am starving.
So it's baked into our DNA.
Our brains evolved to treat an unreturned favor as a threat to our social standing. And in early human history, losing your social standing meant exile and death.
So our brains treat an unpaid debt like a literal survival threat. That's intense.
Exactly. When someone does something for us, our amygdala registers a social imbalance. We inherently deeply feel a tension and anxiety that we should give back to restore the equilibrium. It ensures social cohesion.
And manipulators know this.
Manipulators are essentially hackers. They recognize this biological glitch in our wiring, and they exploit it. By giving more than is appropriate and giving unprompted, they are deliberately creating an artificial deficit in the relationship.
They're putting you in the red on purpose.
They are manufacturing a debt that they fully intend to cash in later to control your choices.
So how do we navigate a world where human reciprocity is a normal, healthy, beautiful thing without becoming totally cynical? Because right now, listening to this, I'm comparing these manipulative favors to a mafia protection racket.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
You know the trope. The mobsters show up, they wash your storefront windows without you asking, and then they walk inside and aggressively demand $100 for the service. Nice windows you got here. Be a real shame if someone threw a brick through them. Pay up.
Right, the forced favor.
If we view every favor from our friends like a mafia shakedown, we're going to end up completely paranoid and totally isolated.
It's a vital distinction to make, otherwise we do risk extreme cynicism. The difference between healthy reciprocity and weaponized overhelping comes down to two variables:
What are they?
consent and strengths. In a healthy dynamic, favors are offered gently. They can be refused without consequence.
Like, oh, you don't need help. Cool.
Exactly. If they are accepted, they're returned naturally over time without anyone keeping a meticulous scorecard. It's a fluid, breathing exchange based on mutual care.
So what's the mafia version then?
In the mafia racket scenario, which perfectly mirrors the manipulator's overhelping the service, is forced upon you. You are deprived of the right to refuse, yet you are still burdened with the psychological cost.
So how do you spot it?
To navigate this without losing your trust in humanity, you have to pay close attention to the aftermath of the favor. Does the person bring it up again? Do they subtly remind you of how much it cost them? Do they use it as a bargaining chip the next time they want something?
And if they do,
If the answer is yes, it wasn't a favor, it was a trap.
a trap that often scales up. Because this emotional debt, this unspoken ledger of favors we're talking about, it inevitably takes a highly physical, tangible form. The washed windows or the painted living room eventually turn into a brand new car or a lavish vacation.
The stakes get higher.
I really want to unpack how gift giving itself becomes a highly structured control system.
Gift giving is perhaps the most profoundly effective mechanism for establishing leverage because it leaves physical evidence of the manipulator's goodness right in your living space.
You literally have to look at it every day.
Psychological profiling of controlling personalities outlines very specific red flags to watch for when a gift is actually a Trojan horse. First and foremost, the gift is often extravagant or wildly over the top for the specific situation or the stage of the relationship.
Like buying someone a diamond watch for their birthday when you've only been dating for 3 weeks.
Exactly.
Huh.
Or a coworker paying for an all-expenses-paid weekend trip after knowing you for a month. It creates an immediate, staggering imbalance of power.
What's the second red flag?
Second, there is a palpable, heavy expectation of a specific reaction. When you open a genuine gift, the giver is happy simply because you are happy.
Right. They just want to see you smile.
But with controlling kindness, if you aren't adequately effusive, if you don't cry, or if you don't instantly pledge absolute loyalty, the giver becomes visibly offended, sulky, or withdrawn.
They feel robbed of their emotional payout.
Precisely. And third, just like with the favors, there is the classic move of repeatedly invoking the gift later. The gift is never truly yours. It remains on loan from their ego. After I bought you that car to help you get to work, you're really going to question my judgment.
It's sickening when you strip away the wrapping paper and realize what's actually happening. There's fascinating research in the professional sphere about this, particularly discussions on platforms like LinkedIn regarding toxic leadership and covert narcissists.
Yes, the corporate gifting dynamic.
It explains that these seemingly generous acts, the bonuses, the lavish team dinners, the expensive gadgets they give the team, they are designed purely to assert dominance. It's entirely about establishing indebtedness.
It has nothing to do with rewarding hard work.
None. The gift is 100% about the giver's image. It's a billboard screaming, "Look at what an amazing, generous, powerful person I am." It has absolutely nothing to do with what you, the recipient, actually need or want.
That is the psychological core of it. The gift is a monument to their own ego, financed entirely by your future compliance.
You know, my mind keeps going to a very specific, vivid analogy. These aren't gifts. They are heavy anchors.
Anchors.
Yeah, think about it. If you see an anchor sitting on the deck of a boat, it might look shiny, well-crafted, maybe even impressive. But once that anchor is tied to your ankle and thrown overboard, its only function is to drag you down to the bottom.
That's a great visual.
So let me pose a scenario. What happens when the victim in this situation realizes there's a rope around their ankle? What happens when they try to leave the relationship or simply try to disagree with the manipulator on a major life decision?
That's when things usually get explosive.
Because I can imagine the psychological paralysis. You're sitting there looking at the diamond watch or sitting in the car they helped you buy, feeling this crushing weight of, how could I possibly walk away after everything they've done for me?
That paralysis isn't an accident. It is the intended, engineered outcome of the entire relationship. When the victim tries to assert independence or swim to the surface, the heavy anchor does exactly what it was designed to do.
It pulls them back down.
The manipulator will immediately invoke the ledger. They will forcefully itemize every extravagant gift, every dollar spent, every favor rendered, in order to paint the victim as profoundly ungrateful, selfish, and cruel.
They flip the script entirely. Suddenly you're the bad guy.
They do. And because the victim is biologically and socially wired for reciprocity, as we discussed earlier, they internalize that guilt deeply. They begin to experience severe self-doubt.
They start second-guessing their own reality.
They think, maybe I am the bad person here. A good person wouldn't abandon someone who gave them so much. A good person would be grateful for this watch. The gift transitions from a shiny object into the physical manifestation of their psychological prison.
A psychological prison built by someone who, honestly, a lot of the time genuinely thinks they are a saint. And I think that's where this topic crosses from unsettling into genuinely terrifying.
The lack of self-awareness.
Right. It is so easy for us to picture these manipulators as calculated, psychopathic villains twirling their mustaches, plotting in a dark room about how to ruin your life with a gift basket.
But it's rarely that conscious.
Human behavior is rarely that cartoonish. What happens when the manipulator genuinely, in their heart of hearts, believes they are the hero of the story? This leads us right into the deeply complex, unspoken contract of the savior complex.
This is where the psychology gets incredibly nuanced and, frankly, quite tragic. The savior complex is a psychological compulsion to rescue others.
A compulsion. They can't stop themselves.
And what's crucial to understand here is that it is often driven not by conscious malice or a desire to be evil, but by a deep-seated, agonizingly anxious need to feel valuable, to feel important, or to maintain a sense of control over an unpredictable environment.
Let's break down the traits of a savior, because I guarantee everyone listening knows someone exactly like this. Psychological profiles show they always want to fix your life.
They are drawn to chaos.
They gravitate toward people with problems, or they just invent problems for you to have. They feel intense, vibrating anxiety if they aren't actively helping someone.
They can't just sit still and be a peer.
And they will sacrifice themselves excessively. They will run themselves absolutely ragged, neglecting their own health and their own finances just to intervene in your life.
Which looks so noble on the outside.
But when you dig into the literature, like the analyses found in psychological journals and platforms like PsychGrid, it reveals the hidden, often subconscious motive behind all this martyrdom. It is an absolutely desperate, bottomless need to be loved, to be accepted, and above all, to be needed.
Yes, they fundamentally conflate being needed with being loved.
Yeah.
In their mind, if you do not need them to survive, you have no reason to love them.
That's so sad.
It is.
Yeah.
And because of that flawed core belief, their help is never, ever free. It always constitutes a covert contract. The unspoken, unwritten agreement is this: I will save you. I will fix your life. I will sacrifice my well-being for you. And in return, you will never leave me. You will constantly admire me, and you will remain perpetually, helplessly in need of me.
This is a tragedy because the manipulator's kindness, the actual physical energy they're expending to help you, is real. They're actually tired from helping you move your furniture or spending hours fixing your resume. They're sweating.
The effort is real, but the intention is control.
But the control they are establishing is equally real. So what happens when the project is finished? What happens when the victim gets better, gets the job, heals from the breakup, and becomes strong and independent?
That's the breaking point.
Why does the savior react with such profound hurt, saying things like, well, I guess you just don't need me anymore? Why do they get genuinely, bitterly jealous of your personal growth?
Because your personal growth is an existential threat to their identity. When you become independent, you are unknowingly voiding that covert contract.
You're breaking the rules they made up in their head.
To the savior, your independence means they are no longer useful. And if they aren't useful, their kernel logic dictates they are unlovable. So when you solve your own problems, they experience genuine, terrifying abandonment anxiety.
Which looks a lot like punishment to the victim.
Exactly. Because the savior doesn't know how to process that fear healthily, it manifests as passive-aggressive withdrawal, sulking, or making undermining comments like, well, I guess you have it all figured out now. Don't forget the little people.
Or they try to tear down your success.
Or they might even subtly sabotage you. They are desperately trying to guilt you back into a state of helplessness so they can feel secure in the relationship again.
They literally need you to be broken so they have a purpose. And because the savior acts out these grand rescues so publicly, everyone in your social circle sees them helping you move. Everyone at the office sees them staying late to help you. Everyone sees them buying you lunch when you're broke.
They build a reputation.
They build this impenetrable, glowing shield around themselves. Which brings us to the most maddening, pull your hair out part of this entire dynamic, their public reputation, the good person mask.
This is the mechanism that enforces the victim's total isolation. The manipulator is universally known in their community as the nice one.
Oh, they're a saint to everyone else.
They are the person who helps everyone. They are wildly generous in public settings, voluntary for committees, organizing charity events, always the first to reach for the check at a group dinner.
There are incredible behavioral breakdowns of this online. Creators on YouTube dissecting the nice guy act or the martyr-mother dynamic. They use their public martyrdom to guilt trip you privately. But crucially, they use that stellar, glowing public reputation to completely gaslight you.
It's the ultimate shield.
Because imagine the scenario. You are suffocating under the weight of this covert contract. You finally snap. You decide to seek support, so you go to a mutual friend or a family member and you try to explain what's happening behind closed doors.
And what do they say?
Society looks at you with utter confusion and says, "What are you talking about? Are we talking about the same person?" But they're so nice. Look at everything they do for you. You are completely overreacting.
And that societal response is what makes this form of manipulation so devastatingly effective. The manipulator leverages the community against you without lifting a single finger.
It does the work for them.
It is a highly efficient form of proxy abuse. The manipulator doesn't even have to defend themselves against your claims. They let their meticulously crafted public persona do the work for them. The community invalidates your lived experience, which ultimately forces you to turn inward and doubt your own sanity.
It's suffocating. It's like living inside a funhouse mirror.
Yeah.
You go to work or you go to a family dinner party and everyone is telling you that the mirror reflects this beautiful, angelic partner or this perfectly supportive best friend. You're so lucky to have them, they say.
It reinforces the trap.
But the minute you get in the car to go home, the mirror warps. You see the strings attached to your lings. You see the guilt trips, the cold shoulders, the constant scorekeeping. How does someone live like this? Can you explain the mechanics of this dual life?
It takes a lot of mental energy.
How does the manipulator successfully compartmentalize enjoying a hero image in public while maintaining this deeply toxic, controlling dynamic in private where the victim is constantly made to feel like they're crazy, selfish, and ungrateful?
It requires an incredible amount of psychological compartmentalization, which is almost always fueled by profound, unaddressed insecurities. The public hero image feeds their ego. It provides that necessary constant dopamine hit of external validation. They need the applause.
They crave it.
But public validation is fleeting and shallow. It doesn't cure the deep-seated anxiety that they are fundamentally out of control of their lives. They need a steady, reliable, captive source of control to manage that internal terror. That's what the private dynamic is for.
So you become the emotional punching bag.
In a sense, yes. In private, behind closed doors, they don't have to perform the exhausting nice act. They can exert raw control through guilt, withdrawal, and unpredictability.
Just keeping you totally off balance.
By constantly keeping you off balance, shifting from extreme warmth to sudden coldness, they ensure that your entire cognitive load is focused on managing their emotions. If you are constantly exhausted trying to figure out why they are mad at you, you're guaranteed not to have the energy or the clarity to pack your bags, leave, or expose them to the public.
It's exhausting just talking about it. The mental gymnastics required to survive that. And living behind the scenes with someone wearing that good person mask creates a highly volatile, deeply confusing daily environment.
It dictates every choice you make.
Let's talk about how this dictates your daily life, because the behavioral research discusses the specific emotional atmosphere they create to keep you trapped.
The clinical term often used to describe this atmosphere is conditional warmth, and it is the primary weather system in this toxic environment.
Conditional warmth, meaning the sun is shining, but a blizzard can hit at literally any second.
Exactly. The manipulator is exceedingly sweet, attentive, generous, and loving, but only when you comply entirely with their wishes, agree with their opinions, and feed their ego.
But what if you step out of line?
The absolute second you assert yourself, set a boundary, spend time with other friends, or show any form of independence, the warmth vanishes. They don't necessarily yell or hit you. That would ruin their nice image.
Right, they have to maintain the plausible deniability.
Instead, they become freezing cold. They become distant. They give one-word answers. They sigh heavily. They sulk.
Looking at research from experts who study emotional abuse, like that Housley article on weaponized favors we mentioned, this alternating between intense, addictive warmth and total freezing withdrawal ensures absolute dependence on their approval.
It wires your brain for submission.
And this is where the biological component gets truly terrifying. Over time, your nervous system actually learns to predict this weather pattern. You internalize this terrifying unspoken equation. If I go along with what they want, discard my own needs, and agree with them, everything is nice, warm, and safe.
And the other side of the equation.
If I say no, or if I choose myself, I am going to face days of subtle punishment, crushing tension, and agonizing silence.
This brings us to a crucial point about the physiological impact of psychological manipulation.
Yeah.
The abuse isn't just happening in your mind, it is happening in your nervous system. Your body physically adapts to the environmental threat.
You are constantly on guard.
To avoid the pain of the withdrawal, you become hypervigilant. Your brain is constantly flooded with low-level cortisol. You find yourself scanning their microexpressions, analyzing their text message punctuation, trying to predict the weather before a storm hits.
It's horrifying when you break it down like that. It is literal Pavlovian conditioning.
Well,
We are talking about the exact same mechanisms used to train animals. You ring the bell of compliance, you get a treat, the warmth
you
returns.
step out of line, you get shocked.
The silent treatment begins. Because the withdrawal of affection is so neurologically painful, the victim is forced to systematically silence their own needs. You start avoiding conflict at all costs. You overextend yourself. You cancel your own plans. You swallow your own opinions just to keep the peace.
Just to keep them warm.
Exactly, just to keep them warm. To summarize this incredibly dark reality, kindness becomes the reward you have to earn, and your absolute obedience becomes the price.
A price that ultimately costs you your autonomy, your self-esteem, and your fundamental sense of self.
So, with our nervous systems completely hijacked by this slot machine payout of conditional warmth, with the whole world telling us this person is a saint while we feel trapped and suffocated, how can we possibly tell what is real anymore?
It's incredibly difficult.
How do we calibrate our internal compass when the magnet is spinning wildly out of control?
When your perception is that distorted, you need an objective measure. Drawing from multiple experts and clinicians who specialize in emotional abuse and coercive control, we can establish an ultimate litmus test. We have to explicitly, logically contrast the traits of genuine kindness with the traits of controlling kindness.
Let's lay it out clearly. What does genuine kindness actually look like, practically speaking?
Genuine kindness is rooted in freedom. It does not require repayment. It is given freely without a ledger being kept in the background. Crucially, genuine kindness does not vanish when you set a boundary.
It survives a no.
Yes,
Oh.
a genuinely kind person can handle hearing the word no. If they offer to help you move and you say, no thanks, I hired movers, a kind person says, great, let me know if you want to grab dinner after.
They don't take it as a personal attack.
Exactly. They don't resort to emotional punishment or withdrawal. Furthermore, genuine kindness matches what you actually need, not what makes the giver look like a hero. And above all, it is never, ever weaponized as a scorecard in an argument months down the line.
Now contrast that with controlling kindness, the dark side of nice.
Controlling kindness is rooted in anxiety and leverage. It often comes on way too intense, way too early. That's the love bombing phase we talked about. It relies heavily on creating a feeling of profound indebtedness.
Making you feel like you owe them.
It weaponizes language, constantly relying on phrases like, after all I've done for you, or I guess I just care more about this relationship than you do. It turns ice cold the moment you assert your own needs or disagree. And ultimately, it breeds a persistent background anxiety, a heavy sense of obligation, and a feeling of being trapped, rather than a feeling of safety and relief.
I really want to drive home a visceral image from our research here. One expert framed it beautifully. If the kindness you are receiving consistently makes you feel like you owe the person your time, your loyalty, your silence, or your body,
It is not kindness.
it is a cage with pretty decorations. The gold bars might be shiny, but they are still bars. Now, I want you to elaborate on something vital for the listener. Society constantly tells us that feelings aren't facts.
We hear that all the time.
But in this specific scenario, why is trusting your physical, visceral gut feeling of being trapped actually far more reliable than looking at the manipulator's glowing public image or their list of good deeds?
Because your somatic nervous system, your body's physical response network, is evolutionarily older and much faster than your cognitive reasoning brain. In cases of covert manipulation, your body recognizes the threat long before your logical brain can articulate exactly what is wrong.
So your body knows first.
Yes. Your cognitive brain is being fed a constant, contradictory narrative. It's thinking they bought me a lavish gift, they helped me when I was down, everyone says they are nice, therefore I must be happy. But your nervous system is registering the microaggressions.
It sees the truth.
It is registering the underlying tension, the subtle tightening of their jaw when you say no, the unspoken demands radiating off them, that gut feeling of anxiety, that inexplicable tightness in your chest when they offer to do you a favor.
Or the way your stomach drops when their name pops up on your phone.
Exactly. That is your vagus nerve and your survival mechanism screaming that the covert contract is dangerous. The public image is carefully curated. Your physical, biological response is instinctual and entirely honest. You must trust the anxiety. It is your body telling you that the ultimate price of this kindness is too high.
Trust the anxiety. Your body knows before your brain does.
Wow. Okay, so now that we know exactly what the pretty cage looks like, we know the gold bars are still bars, and we know we need to listen to our tight chests and dropping stomachs when we feel the trap closing in. How do we dismantle it?
We have to take action.
It is time for practical, tactical self-defense against weaponized niceness.
The clinical experts and relationship therapists lay out several highly actionable strategies for you to take back your economy and protect your boundaries.
Let's get into the tactics. What is the first line of defense?
The very first thing you must do is slow down time. Manipulators rely on speed. If someone is overly generous, showering you with extravagant praise, or coming on far too strong very early in a relationship, whether romantic or professional, you need to mentally and verbally hit the brakes.
You just have to say, whoa, slow down.
Privately name what is happening. Tell yourself, this feels fast, this feels unearned. Do not let grand, sweeping gestures blind you to the reality that you barely know this person. Let time, and only time, reveal their true character, because the mask always slips eventually.
Consistency over years is the only proof of genuine kindness.
The second tactic is one I absolutely love. It's called the no test. The premise is brilliant. The real test of a person's character isn't how they act when you are showering them with gratitude and doing exactly what they want.
Of course, they're nice then.
Right. It is how they react when you say no, when you disagree, or when you simply choose your own comfort over their ego. If you say, no, I can't hang out tonight, I just need to rest, and they respond with a guilt trip, a heavy sigh, silent treatment, or the classic, after all I've done.
Bingo. The test is over. You have found a manipulator.
It is the most efficient diagnostic tool you have. Just say no and watch what happens.
It really is. The next tactic requires a crucial cognitive reframe. You must learn to separate appreciation from obligation. Manipulators conflate the two. They teach you that if you are grateful, you must be compliant.
Which is a lie.
You have to untangle that in your own mind. You can be genuinely, deeply thankful that someone helped you change a flat tire on the highway, while simultaneously retaining your complete, unapologetic autonomy to say no to their request to borrow $1,000 the very next day.
Yes. I latch onto this profound phrase from the behavioral research. Gratitude does not equal surrender. I think this should be a daily mantra for anyone recovering from a savior or a toxic people-pleaser dynamic.
It's a powerful statement.
Listener, hear this. You do not have to shrink yourself. You do not have to give up your boundaries. And you do not have to hand over the keys to your life just to prove you are a thankful person. You can look someone dead in the eye, say thank you so much for your help, and still say no to their demands.
Absolutely. And that leads directly into how we handle the tangible leverage. You must critically evaluate high-cost gifts. When someone gives you something extravagant, you need to step back from the initial excitement and ask yourself logically, does this gift match the actual level of our relationship?
Right, context matters.
If a coworker you've known for a month buys you a $500 espresso machine, that is not a kind gesture. It is a massive red flag.
But how do you handle that? Because if you give it back, they call you rude and make a huge scene. Everyone thinks you're crazy.
You accept it gracefully in the moment, but you watch very closely what happens next. Watch what happens if you don't respond with the exact subservient level of awe they expect. If that espresso machine is ever mentioned again, if it becomes a bargaining chip when they want you to cover their shift, you must realize in that moment that you are not a recipient of a gift.
What are you?
You are an investment. They purchased equity in your compliance. At that point, you return the machine or refuse the shift, knowing the resulting tantrum is proof you did the right thing.
You're an asset they purchased. It makes you feel gross just thinking about it. And finally, the ultimate defense is redefining kindness for yourself. Because manipulators warp our definition of love and care. We have to rebuild it from the ground up.
We need a new baseline.
Real kindness fundamentally respects your autonomy. It absolutely does not keep a scorecard hidden in a drawer. It never punishes you for your honesty or your boundaries. But most importantly, and bringing it back to the nervous system, real kindness feels like safety.
It feels calm.
It feels like a deep breath. It does not feel suffocating, urgent, or tense.
If someone's allegedly nice behavior constantly leaves you feeling guilty, trapped, exhausted, or indebted, you must trust that feeling over their curated public image. The body does not lie.
So, to summarize this incredibly intense, eye-opening deep dive, kindness is undeniably powerful. It has the power to heal trauma, it builds deep communal trust, and it genuinely changes lives. But that immense world-shaping power is exactly why controlling, manipulative, and deeply insecure people like to wear it as a mask.
It's the perfect camouflage.
Niceness provides the absolute perfect cover for abuse. Aggression is too obvious. I mean, if they yelled at you on day one, you would run away. Kindness disarms your defenses so they can sneak the Trojan horse right through your front gates.
But realizing this dark reality doesn't mean you have to retreat into the woods and become a bitter cynic who rejects all human help. You don't have to stop trusting people.
You just have to be smart about it.
You just have to become deeply, fiercely clear. You need clarity of vision to see the strings. Real kindness doesn't make you feel smaller. It doesn't make you feel anxious. And it certainly doesn't make you feel owned.
And as we wrap up, there's one final thread I want to pull on, something that shifts this from pure anger to a sort of profound pity. We talked heavily about the savior complex, the covert contracts, the desperate need for control, and the massive amount of energy these manipulators expend just to keep you trapped.
It's a highly exhausting way to live.
Yes. And analyzing all that effort leaves us with a final, deeply provocative thought to consider. If someone's spending their entire life using excessive kindness as a covert contract to ensure they are needed, what are they actually terrified of?
Who's driving the fear?
Beneath the manipulation, beneath the heavy anchors, the scorecards, and the pretty cages, perhaps it's their own deeply hidden tragic fear that without a transactional ledger of favors, they are entirely, fundamentally unlovable.
They don't believe anyone would ever stay just for who they are.
They believe they have to buy your presence.
That is a haunting thought. A pretty gilded cage built entirely out of their own terrifying insecurity.
But listener, understanding their pain does not mean you have to stay in their cage. If someone in your life is so nice, but something always feels a little off, trust your gut. Remember the Trojan horse. Do not let it past your gates just because it's painted gold. Thank you for going on this deep dive with us. Stay curious, protect your peace, and we will catch you on the next one.